Hear these words from the prophet Isaiah. I am the Lord, your Holy One, the Creator of Israel, your King. Thus says the Lord, who makes a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters, who brings out chariot and horse, army and warrior. They lie down, they cannot rise. They are extinguished, quenched like a wick. Do not remember the former things, or consider the things of old. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the desert, and rivers in the desert. The wild animals will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, for I give water in the wilderness, rivers in the desert, to give drink to my chosen people, the people whom I formed for myself, so that they might declare my praise.
Morning. This is a pretty amazing text that we have here from the prophet Isaiah. Before we get into it, I just want to kind of say a few things about the prophets. I think prophets always seem to get a bad rap, you know that? Seems like they're always centered around gloom and doom, and they're never really hear from a prophet unless things are starting to get pretty bad, right? So we always think of them in such a negative light, kind of like doctors, right? I still got friends that say, I'll refuse to go to the doctor because every time I go, they have nothing good to say. As if they have nothing to do with it, right? Now, there are a lot of things that are out of control, you know, medically, but there are still a lot of things that are still in our control, right? If we just did certain things, if we just lived right, right? If we just ate properly, right? Got a little exercise in, go sit an hour and a half in hot yoga and sweat it out, right? If we would just kind of reduce our stress levels, get some good sleep, then if we do go to the doctor, they're going to have a lot of good things to say about us. And really, prophets are kind of the similar situation. They don't necessarily predict the future. What they just do is that they diagnose what we have done in the past that is starting to make our present condition look pretty bleak. When all's said and done, the future really is in our hands. And how that works is this. So if we choose God, then what we are choosing to do is placing our future in God's hands. And we are allowing God to better our lives significantly. So all we really have to do then is what is right by God. So what would that be? Well, we talk about that a lot. We have to be constantly learn God's ways. But learning God's ways isn't just there. We have to practice and commit ourselves to living out God's ways. We have to worship as though God is the most important part of our lives. And learn how to listen to God's voice. Learn how to trust God's direction for our lives and rely on one another to help us get through this life and to keep faithful. If we choose to do that, then our future will be amazing. Maybe not the way that we visualize it in our minds, but in the way that we don't even understand currently of how good it can be. And I think this is our constant struggle with God. I think we want to be a partner with God or we wouldn't be here, but there's too many times in our lives that we just prefer that God be that silent partner, you know, that one that kind of backs us up when we're in need, the one that kind of bails us out when we get in trouble. And so what Isaiah said over 2,500 years ago is that never works. It never worked in the past. It's not going to work in the future. God does not work that way. God is far more powerful, far more valuable, and deserves far more respect than that. And to show that, he takes these people of Israel back to their improbable beginnings. When they were slaves in Egypt, and God heard their cries, and God went and stripped them from the most powerful military army in the world. Using what? A shepherd and a stick. Is that not impressive? Try doing that with ISIS tomorrow. Okay? If that's not good enough, He even parts the seas and allows us to walk through dry land. And once we're safe on the other side, the waters will come crashing down on the people. Nothing gets in the way of God. But we as people tend to forget the greatness of God and only seem to remember their traditions and their rituals as if that is all that really matters in the life of the church. And so Isaiah told them to forget the things of old, but to cling on to God's greatness. And if we cling on to God's greatness, then you better be prepared for a ride of your life. A ride that no one will be able to replicate in this world, and a ride that no one will ever be able to predict what God will do next. Because God is constantly doing a new thing. Linda and Steve Salmon, many of you know, have been in this church for 20 years. Linda's on the right. Linda, they have been with us for 20 years. They got here about 6 months after I did, and in the 20 years that we spent together has been quite a journey. They've gone through a lot of trials in their life. Probably nothing more significant than what they went through when they lost their only son. Very difficult time. And to see them come together and pull together, rely on y'all and rely on our friends, or close friends, people, rely on God's hope in their life. And we found ourselves just holding on to even a string at some point in time until they got to the other side of all that pain and sadness and grief and found healing on the other side. And they found a lot of hope, a whole deeper understanding of who God is and God's grace, and a whole new understanding of love and the purpose for the church. Quite a journey we went through together as a family. A few years ago, Linda accepted the position or the challenge to be an elder of this congregation. And that's that is the most important role of this church, far more important even than the senior minister, because it's the elders, the group that oversees really the spiritual health of the church and the community. They are the ones who gather together and start analyzing things and making sure that what we are doing is consistent to what God have us to do. Are we loving the way that Christ loves? Are we doing things the way that Christ has us to do? When we're dealing with hurts and pains of people, are we comforting people the way that Christ would have them to be comforted? It's a very serious and huge task. Well, Linda accepted the challenge of this position, not because she thought she was the right person for the job, just the opposite, but because she trusted her peers who came to her and saw things in her that she really didn't see in herself. But she trusted them. Not only that, she trusted God would lead her in a place that would be a new journey for her life. Lynn and I sat down and talked a little bit about her growth that she's had over the course of the last 20 years, especially when she accepted the role of an elder. And I want you to listen to her story as she reflects on how she grew and how it's also consistent with those elements of faith that we've been talking about for the last several years. So listen to Linda's story.
It was a growing time. It was a step out in faith. I'm in this life to do God's will, not mine. And if there are people around me that think they see God in me, then they may see God and I don't see God in me. And so I have to trust that God will guide me, give me the words, give me the faith. A lot that's helped that too, though, is since Charlie's passing, I've been in Bible studies constantly, and that's been good. The daily disciplines have been a major help. Having a daily time every day is hard at first, but now I can't live without it. The days that I don't have time to spend as much time, I miss it. I feel closer to God now than I ever have before. And that's a great feeling. And it's because of the people in this church. It's not Central Christian Church. It's the people that are here that make the church. No, I think the daily devotional time has helped me tremendously. And in order to do that, I need to stay in a study of some kind. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy for me to get distracted and not. So all the studies that we do and all the things that we have going on at the church have helped me a lot. The daily thing is definitely what's made the difference.
Being a human being is not easy. It's difficult as we go through the joys and the trials of life, as we go through the traumas and the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, and we go through a lot of difficult moments of our life as we go through. But then on the other side, it's also difficult when things are going well, because it's so incredibly easy for us to get distracted with our families, with our work, with leisure time, that even without even knowing it, God kind of gets strung along in our busy lives, kind of like that reluctant dog on a leash. You ever had one of those dogs? But the point is that God refuses to be led by us. And God refuses to be tied up even to a fence while we go and take care of things that might be more important than God. And this is really where the voice of the prophet is to our advantage, because it is also critical to our spiritual health as well. Because the prophets serve as a reminder of one who's constantly trying to remind us of who we are and to whom we belong. That God cannot do new things in our lives. God cannot do new things in our community. God cannot do new things in our world as long as we string God along. We have to be willing to allow this God to lead us. And then amazing things will happen. Amazing things that come in the form of growth, of new understanding, of new life, that brings new opportunities. Because God is constantly doing new things. So the question is, how do you know that you are growing spiritually? I want you to listen again to what Linda has to say.
Knowing that Christ is alive in my heart has changed my attitude. It's changed the way I look at other people. It's changed the way I approach anything. It allows me to step back and say, and ask God, is this what you want? Let me try to show your light through me. I've been through enough in my life that I have faith, and I want to share that, because it's so much better. So much better to have faith and to be able to trust than it is to be angry all the time or doubtful or let this world determine how I feel or how I think. I think the daily study, the daily time, taking time to stop and just listen, putting my mind aside, trying to be quiet, be still, know that God is God, letting Him talk to me. I don't know that I've heard an actual voice, but I think He speaks to me. I think He guides me when I listen. That's the key, is when I listen.
Linda has really grown over the course of the many, many years and through all of her many experiences and for her to think that where she is, 6 years ago, to think that she thought where she is today, 6 years ago, she would have never dreamed of being in a position where she's at, especially losing her son. And it's been a remarkable journey. But what she wants to share with you is that journey is not just for her, but it's for all of us, and for all of us to take as well. And the question that we want to ask at the end of this year is, how confident are you in your relationship with God? Do you have the confidence that you can do the same very things that Linda is capable of doing or has done? Do you feel strong about your relationship with God? If not, then this is a great time to really think through that process, to really step out and to do new things that might help you in your relationship with God. In your bulletin, there's a section in the bottom, just underneath the order of worship. These are those 7 elements of faith that we've been talking about for years and years. And it's a good time for us to kind of evaluate where we are and what it is that we're striving to do for the new year, to try something new, help us to grow and develop in our relationship with God. And I want us to take a little bit of time, if you will, to go through those 7 elements of faith and talk about the different things that we're trying to do together and find out where it is that you might be most vulnerable, where you need the most growth. And then check those things on there. But I don't want you to just check it and then put this in the dumpster on your way out the door. I want you to check it, and on the way, I want you to tear it out. And I want you to keep it, or I want you to do one of two things. You can put it in a mirror on your house to remind yourself of what you're going to try to do better this year. Or secondly, and try to do it on your own, which really doesn't have a lot of real positive effects on people. Or secondly, you can try to write your name on there. Not try, you can write your name on there, pretty sure. And put your phone number on there. And if you check something that you need help in, then you're going to find the right person and the right people to make things happen in this particular area. We have a tremendous staff that can help us through this. We have a great amount of elders. We have a lot of mature people that help us through this journey of life, that can help you get where you need to be through the course of next year. So when we come around next year and we're sitting here in this pew and we're looking at this again, you can say, I really grew in this particular area, where I began to really understand what Scripture is all about and how it applies and how to apply it in my daily life. So I want us to take a little bit of time, do some self-evaluation, make your check marks. If you need help, write your name, write your phone number, tear it off, and when we come forward for communion and offering, to put it in a plate, and then we'll get you a phone call, and we'll help you get to the place where you need to be and help enhance your relationship with God and what all that means. So let's take some time to do that.